What is up, everyone, and welcome in to the Boston Celtics versus New York Knicks Round 2 preview show. The Celtics, dominated the regular season series 4-0. Most of the blowouts, except that last game where the Celtics won in overtime. Um, and yes, the regular season doesn't tell us everything, but it gives us a pretty good idea of how these teams are going to match up schematically, just because most of the guys were there for all 4 games. There weren't key guys missing except for that first game of the season where Kristaps Porziņģis was out and the Celtics made like 27 threes or something. Um, you know, but the Celtics, they took a lot of pride in beating Boston this season or beating New York this season. Um, you know, yes, it's a rivalry, but also you have you know Jaylen Brunson and Jason Tatum competing for one of the top, all NBA spots. Um, you also have, both of them trying to get in that MVP conversation. But there were, I would say, like 3 main reasons why the Celtics absolutely blew out the Knicks, and why I think they're going to blow out the Knicks in this series as well. Um, the first is right. The Knicks do not defend the three well at all. Right, Jason Tatum had multiple open looks throughout the season, coming around screens with Karl Anthony Towns and drop coverage. The Celtics, right, they shot over 37% in I believe all 4 games. I think they were over 40% in 2 of the games as well. Um, they outshot the Knicks from 3 in all of these series. And basically the math didn't add up for the Knicks in a lot of these series. Like the Celtics shot poorly in that Magic series. Like the Magic do a fantastic job of defending the three, taking it away, making it physical. And I think this is going to be a physical series as well. But I think, I expect offense to come easier for the Celtics in this round because of the Knicks' lack of 3-point defense. Um, Jason Tatum, he outplayed Jalen Brunson in most of the games. I think almost he outscored him by an average of 7 points in all 4 games. They were pretty equal in crunch time, but Jason Tatum had the big 3 in game 4 to send the game to overtime when they won by 2. Um, the same 2 players that make the Knicks so great offensively make them poor defensively, right? As I mentioned earlier, Cat got exposed in drop coverage, and I think he's going to get exposed in with drop coverage in this series as well. I talked about it earlier, but he was often caught between trying to either stay with the guy rolling and Kristaps Porziņģis or even Luke Kornet. And I'll talk about Luke Kornet later on because he could be a huge factor in this series, as he was in the regular season series. But if Cat decides not to roll with them, you either got a easy lob over the top, which Jason Tatum can throw up to Cat or to KP or Luke, or if that's not open, you now have Jason Tatum on Karl Anthony Towns one-on-one ISO, and that's not going to end well for Karl Anthony Towns. He's going to get put on skates. Jason Tatum is going to either be able to drive around him and get to the rim, or he can do a step back 3 over the top of him. Right? It's never good when you have a center on a all-star power forward like Jason Tatum is. And I'll talk about it more because Kristaps Porziņģis has the same issue as most centers do. Right. There isn't much you can do schematically though about that, right? Because Cat, he has to pick one, and either way, you're gonna get basically embarrassed for either whichever one you pick, you're gonna get embarrassed about. In a shootout, I have to pick the Celtics just because they have so many more guys that are capable of knocking down a shot for to help the team, right? If Jalen Brunson and Jason Tatum pretty much cancel each other out, the Knicks, yes, you have Karl Anthony Towns and a little bit from Bridges and Hart and OG Anunoby, but the Celtics could get the same points as Tatum from Jaylen Brown. You could get 20 points from Derek White, um, Peyton Pritchard, Kristaps Porziņģis, Drew Holiday, even guys like Sam Hauser and Al Horford off the bench. You know, I just think if Jason Tatum and Jalen Brunson cancel each other out, or even if Jason Tatum scores more than Jalen Brunson in the series, the Knicks are not going to have a chance in that shootout because they just don't have enough guys to help them to step up and make big shots for them. Especially with the way Tom Thibodeau plays his guys, right? He doesn't play many guys. There's going to be, there could be a fatigue factor with some of these guys, especially if he's not going into his bench at all. And yes, I don't think it's going to be a deep bench series for 20 or 30 minutes a night, but like you could still get 10 or 15 minutes from a combination of 10 or 15 minutes from guys. And I think the Celtics bench is going to step up, whereas the Knicks bench I don't think will be able to. That being said, there are some things that the Knicks can try and do to get easier baskets and keep up with the Celtics, right? And it comes down to who's defending who and screens. KP is going to be most likely guarding the Knicks' worst offensive player, right? It's probably going to be a small guard or wing, maybe Josh Hart, maybe OG Anunoby. Tatum will be on Karl Anthony Towns, right? KP has been terrible in isolation, so they're going to put him on the worst defender and try and hide him as always. And so the Knicks are going to have to run ball screens for Brunson with a guy like Josh Hart or OG Anunoby instead of Karl Anthony Towns, because if you run it with Karl Anthony Towns, Jason Tatum switches on to Brunson, and Jason Tatum's a great, I think, underappreciated defender. Yes, he might not be quite as good as Holiday, White, Brown, but he can definitely keep his feet in front of him, especially more than a guy like KP. Um, but if they run screens with a smaller guard, then you get KP in the matchup, and you can do the same thing as Jason Tatum would be doing against Karl Anthony Towns. Yes, that's going to limit the ability of Karl Anthony Towns to hit or do a pick and pop screen and shoot a three. But I think the more reliable shot is Brunson uh, getting downhill, getting twos, than a 37% 3-point shot from Karl Anthony Towns, especially because it's not going to be wide open. Um, you know, and and this is sort of where Luke Kornet comes in, because if Luke Kornet can provide any sort of consistent rim protection, um, you know, and offensive rebounds, and basically playing the way a big center would, which he did for most of the season. He was not nowhere to be found in the Orlando series, but it wasn't really a series built for him. But I think this series definitely is. I would take some of KP's minutes, give them to Luke and a little bit to Al. But as for Luke, he was a much better defender out in isolation, staying in front of guys like Brunson than Kristaps Porziņģis was this season. Plus, he's been lethal in that two-man game with Jason Tatum. The pick and roll. I think they were the second best duo in the league in terms of points per possession for the duo. A lot of ghost screens, where he would go in to set a screen, but he wouldn't actually set it. He would slip out, and that's the defender still has to, think and stop like it was a screen. So it does the same thing, but Luke Kornet is able to get out of the screen much quicker because he's not getting stopped by the opposing defender. And that's how Luke was able to get downhill for some fantastic lobs from Jason Tatum. Um, the rest of the bench, right? As I predicted earlier, they're going to be key contributors. Hauser, Pritchard, you have to I think they're going to get reliable open shots just because of the way the Knicks play. And if Jason Tatum can get downhill and kick it out to those guys, right? The Knicks do a lot of double covering, whereas the Magic didn't. Right, the Magic stayed on those shooters and allowed, sort of hope for the best with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown one-on-one. The Knicks are not going to do that because they just don't have the defensive players to do that. So there's going to be a lot of, if they can get the ball moving, get the Knicks in rotation, I think Hauser and Pritchard are going to have lots of opportunities to get easy points. There's definitely a chance that, they get attacked on the defensive end as well. So if that's happening a lot, maybe, Joe Mazzulla gives them a short leash and they're off. So it depends on how much the Celtics can hide those two players. Less so Hauser, but definitely, Pritchard. There's obviously the chance of, Jalen Brunson having a huge game, Karl-Anthony Towns having a huge game, and you can win a game here and there with the two of them. But I am going to take the Celtics in 5. I was tempted to say 6 just because of, the ability of Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns to have a just fantastic offensive night. But I've decided that I'm going to go 5 because I think it's going to be an easier series, actually, than the Magic series. I just don't think they're going to get banged up as much, even though Joe Mazzulla claimed it's going to be a physical series. They're going to play physical. I just think with the way they play, it's going to be – we saw how they looked. They looked sloppy at times against the Pistons, and the Pistons are not a great offensive team. Yes, they're better than the Magic, and they do have Cade Cunningham, who I would say is probably equal to what Paul Banchero was doing. Plus, they have Malik Beasley and other shooters. But still, they didn't look great. There were a lot of sloppy plays. Yes, they came down in clutch time. They won a lot of those games on Jaylen Brunson and just the inexperience of the Pistons. But you're not facing a inexperienced team in the Celtics. And the Celtics have plenty of clutch players on their own that are going to match whatever Jaylen Brunson does. So, yep, health obviously is going to be a key factor. Holiday seems, like he's a go for game 1. Brown said he's almost back to 100%. I don't know about that, but that's what he claims. Tatum's wrist, he's looked great in the last 3 games of the Magic series, right? Scoring 35, 36, 37. Not in that particular order. But yeah, I'm going to, be live after every single game. We're actually going to be live tonight after the Clippers Nuggets game 7, doing an instant reaction. So make sure to tune in for that. But yeah, please follow me on social media, like and subscribe. And until next time, go Celtics.
It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured.